in the Bible, there is a Tower of Babel. How was the Tower of Babel constructed? Because people are speaking one language, they were united. They had a common, clear sense of purpose. And because of their prosperity, they decided to burn bricks and to go to this God who had created them. So they wanted to be like God. So when God was walking around, he saw people planning, it's like to overthrow him, to be like him. And he separated us since that time with our many languages. This is a problem we are dealing with. And as Julius Nyerere said, that when we were colonized, we were tribes. But when we were free, when we got independence, we were a nation state. So that's a challenge. So the conversations we are having here are legitimate. And we should not shy away from having them. Because if we shy away from having them, we are being dishonest with ourselves. Because I was born a Kikuyu, I never chose to be one. That is part of my identity. People have different identities. Then, of course, I am a differently created human being. I'm a person with albinism. That's also another identity. So all of these are part of me. And because of that, the BAL, I understand marginalization very well. And I can see some new form of marginalization. You can't say, because somebody was eating, you deny them the food, you give and you starve them the food. What you say is this: how do we ensure that everybody gets the equitable share? That's for me where I stand from. You don't deny people. Because when you talk about representation, National Assembly is a House of Representatives. It's not trees, it's not animals, it's not what? It is people. And when you look at this narrative, by the way, other communities should also have their own. Because I can see the same problem in Luo Nyanza, I can see the same problem in Western, and more so Nairobi. It is not inimical to just people from Central. So it's just that we are advancing our narrative because every region must also negotiate. So really, I had actually delineated those issues as about representation. That's the first irreducible minimum. It's the issue of resource allocation and the mode of government. Those are the three. Yeah? The mode of government. That's why we are saying universal suffrage, one man, one vote. But going forward, the BAL, development is not static. My rural constituency is Githongori, where A.K. Magogo had managed to tarmac the whole constituency and even bring water. If you go there now, all the roads are like Shamba. There is no road there. Populations have increased. Professor Manyora is saying very correctly, even Vihiga, the average acreage per family is a quarter of an acre. Highly populated people. So these are conversations we must have because people are still getting children. I mean, you cannot say that because you have been in power for so long, then you don't deserve. In actual sense, for the first time, it's like people in Mount Kenya region don't even want the presidency. Yeah, for the first time. It's like they don't want the presidency. And then you are saying, if we do not have the presidency, what is on the table for us? Yeah, have a proper way of representation, have an equitable share of resources, and that is okay for everybody. Because if you apply the new formula of revenue sharing, almost every other county gets. But you cannot have a situation, the BAL, where you have a county like Mandera with 1 million people, but when it comes to the number of voters being cast is 10,000, 15,000. There is a disproportionate, there is a mismatch there. It has to be corresponding. And where you find, when you are giving bursary, if you have 100 million in your CDF, you are giving bursary for 3,000. Others are even given 500,000 for people to go out and study abroad. Okay. So what we are trying to say is this. Can we have an honest conversation? I am of the school of thought, and this is Isaac Mwaura speaking, that yes, indeed, we need to de-risk our politics by having a kind of a hybrid system. Let the president be elected, have a premier who is from the majority party in parliament and 2 deputies, so that then you create more space for people, because people want to have people who look like them in government. So you should, and then have the leader of official position back in parliament. And then, to answer the question of Professor Manyora in terms of, the California state and Hillary Clinton and Trump, Hillary won the popular vote. That's why you have the Senate. And Senate, Advocate Omogeni will tell you, we vote by delegation. Like I belong to the Kiambu delegation. That way then you have equality of vote, because every county vote has only 1 vote. If Wamatangi is not there, then I vote. If Wamatangi, if I am there, that kind of thing. So what I'm trying to say is this: we need to have an honest conversation. Zaba Kitonga has written very well in today's Star, or is it the Weekend? He said the biggest tragedy for the Naivasha meeting is the mutilation of the Senate. So if we had a proper Senate, so that we have resource distribution.
Thank you.
I am on record as having said, as I finish, is that devolution is a revolution. And for sure, if you go to counties like Kitui, if you go to counties like Kakamega, you can see even Makueni, you can see the transformation.
Let's see.
But that conversation cannot be done at the expense of other counties.
Let's see from Okongo Mogini, because he says that they are marginalized. But did you know also Kiambu County is one of the counties that actually is listed under the ASAL's list in this country. The arid and semi-arid lands in the country. Maybe that's the reason now that they're claiming to be marginalized. And how is Kiambu in the ASAL list as well? Where did that really come from?
Those are the inequalities that we talk about. And I think Moro should not even talk about Kiambu.
Moro even should clarify why Kiambu County is listed as an arid and semi-arid lands in this country.
I will respond.
Thank you.
Those are some of the injustices that we need to correct. Yeah, but I think first, Dibal, let's not speak like we are strangers in Jerusalem. Because when we are challenging this issue of BBI, it's like we are forgetting where this country was after we had our elections in 2017. And we also forgetting that really this thing has brought us together now as a country. I mean, yesterday I was in a function which brought together people whom before the handshake you could never imagine that they could share a podium. And I think what we are trying to do is to heal this country. We want to do away with the very bad competitive politics that we go through, every time we have elections. And then we want inclusivity. I think what we are drumming day in, day out is that we want inclusivity. We don't want divisive politics. And you can never leave this to Parliament. My good friend Gladys Shollei wants to tell the people of Kenya that if you are a president and you see your country is burning, you just sit back and say, this is something that Parliament can fix. No. I think as a leader, if you see that your country is going right, you have an obligation to have an intervention. Number two, Tibal, you cannot call BBI an illegality, because at the end of the day, this process will end up on the floor of National Assembly and the Senate. I did want to speak about this, but Muhura here will tell you that already we have in place a process, that brings together the Senate and the Parliament that is ready to receive this baby called BBI. And if there is any process that requires the input of Parliament and the Senate, we will process it. We cannot, in fact, if you read Article 99 of the Constitution, Kenyans have a right even to come and petition Parliament. So if the BBI process can make representation that will lead to parliamentary process to amend the Constitution or a referendum, so be it. And we are not just talking about the territory of Kenya. My good friend Gladys Shollei, there is no way we are going to strengthen devolution unless we address the weaknesses we have in Chapter 11 that deal with devolution. There is no way we are going to have a Senate that is strengthened unless we look at Chapter 8. And all these things may require some amendments on the floor. If you talk about devolution, you must go to the referendum. That's what we have in the current Constitution. There is no way, Dibali, will touch anything that deals with devolution unless you go to a referendum. If you want to increase the minimum resources, now what is in the Constitution, 15% to 45%, then you must go to a referendum. If you want to take the Senate back to where it was before the mutilation, the way Zaba Kitonga has written in the newspaper, then you go to Chapter 8 of the Constitution, and that may require some referendum. So we cannot run away from the fact that whatever views the people of Kenya have given, and the people of Kenya are the ones who are supreme. That's what the Constitution says. It is them who have given us this Constitution. If they say they are not happy with what we have currently, so be it. If we need to go to a referendum, let's not shy off. Let's go to a referendum if that's what will fix the problem that we are facing. If we need to do the amendments on the floor of the House, issues dealing with corruption, maybe Chapter 6 doesn't require us to go to a referendum, we fix it. Because we want to fight this animal called corruption. It is derailing our development. I mean, Yes. Am I offending you in a way?
No, you're not offending me, but just like, you know what, I think Dibal,
and then finally, Dibal, you know, we can never, let's not make this issue of representation simplistic. If you go to the MP for where, I don't know, I'm forgetting this constituency, in Marsabit, the farthest constituency in Marsabit, that guy, there's Lisamis and others. Yes. You know, that's somebody who is covering
400 kilometers.
400 kilometers. Now, if you want to say that the only measure for you to get a constituency is to have a higher population of, I don't know, Kiambu, a constituency has 114, it means that the whole county of Marsabit will not even be able to produce a member of parliament. That is not realistic.
Thank you.
We must also take into account the land area of a region. So that's one of the considerations that we take. The distance an MP is traveling to reach his constituents.
but Juliet thinks, yes.
It is very important that when we appear on national television, it is also our responsibility to make sure that we educate Kenyans and tell them the actual facts. One, we cannot operate as if we do not have a constitution. We have a constitution in this country. And the constitution is the one that dictates every step that we undertake, even as president or leader of opposition. They should have said, if this is what Kenyans want, because when you're saying that Kenyans are not happy with the constitution, no. 2 people came up with 9 points and said they're not happy with the constitution. It was not Kenyans. The clamor did not come from Kenyans. The 2010 constitution came from clamor by the common mwananchi. And that is where the change of any constitutional change process should emanate from. Or it should emanate from the representatives of the people who were elected by the public in order to be able to undertake those processes. And that is why we must say, yes, maybe the issues raised by BBI are valid. But we must remember that even if they are valid, they then must be processed through the constitution. When you say that Kenyans, even if you look at the preamble of our constitution, we say we are proud of our ethnic and cultural religious diversity. We acknowledge that we are a country with many communities and many tribes. We acknowledge that we recognize that with the essential values of human rights, equality, freedom, democracy, social justice, and the rule of law. That's the preamble of our constitution. So why are we speaking as Kenyans as if we do not have a constitution? And in any case, and when you talk about that, I think it's been mentioned that the country was in turmoil after, yes, it is true. We had the Machozi Mondays, we had the riots on the streets, etc., propagated by one political party. They blackmailed Kenya into having, we needed to have a handshake. And I did support the handshake, and I do support it, because we needed to tame Raila so that he can stop causing chaos in our country. Because that is the card that he has. If I don't get my way, I will cause chaos. Remember that when you go to an election, you must agree that I could lose. So are you saying that when we go to an election, if I lose, I can cause chaos? Because, by the way, not one person has the monopoly of violence. If everybody was to take the route of violence if I don't win, can you imagine what country we would have? So first of all, we must have an undertaking as leaders that should I lose, I should accept the loss. Just like everybody who goes to a race, a football match, etc. You have to accept that I have lost, and you agree to make peace. But if everybody who lost created chaos in the country, then forced us to have a BBI process, and then forces us to change our constitution so that they can be on the table should they lose again, that is unacceptable. It means we are throwing away the constitution. Then we may as well say, let's move away to become a country that doesn't have a constitution. And if you remember, the reason why we put every step of changes of the law and the constitution and inclusivity in our constitution is because there was a time, if you remember, when Kenyans started clamoring for a multi-party system, President Moi then stood up in a function in Kasarani and said, I have now agreed to repeal Section 2A. We have moved from that process where one person stands up and says, I'm repealing the Constitution. Even though he had no power to repeal the Constitution, he stated it. Later, he sanitized it by going to Parliament to make that amendment. So we have moved as Kenyans away from that process, where even a person as high as the president must follow the law. Because even how we elected the president using the constitution. Therefore, he is bound to follow the constitution in anything he tries to change in this country. Let's remember that. Because the president is not above the constitution. In fact, he's more bound by the constitution than any other person in this country.
Okay, let's just hear what people...
And by the Dibal, and I think people should remind, I want to remind Kenyans this, there has been judgment in the Columbia Supreme Court, the Indian Supreme Court, where they have talked about changes to the constitution, that there are certain fundamentals in our constitution, that it is, you just don't change it by any type of process, like BBI. You cannot change it in a pedestrian manner. You must change it with the highest sacred process set out in our constitution.
All right, let's